Welcome to the first episode of Accessibility Now, stories about disability rights in Georgia. Accessibility Now is a podcast produced by the statewide Independent Living Council of Georgia. I'm your host, Matt Shedd. In this podcast, we're going to focus on the independent living movement in Georgia, what's happening now, and the actual resources that are available for people with disabilities. Throughout this series, we're going to visit the 9 Centers for Independent Living, commonly referred to as CILs, in the state of Georgia. In our first episode, we're going to focus on Access to Independence, a center for independent living in Columbus, Georgia. Columbus is located in the west central part of the state, where Georgia borders Alabama. I spoke with Kirk Holcombe, the Executive Director of Access to Independence.
Well, my name is Kirk Holcombe. I'm the Executive Director for Access to Independence. We're here located in Columbus, Georgia. We're a Center for Independent Living that primarily is a nonprofit organization that works with people with disabilities. Really, anything that anyone needs, anyone from medical equipment to information to services or help with family, we will do our best to accomplish whatever goal that they have set in mind. I never would have gotten into this line of work if it wasn't for my son. My son's autistic. And so to have an autistic son who has dyslexia, a sensory processing disorder, and to have the problems that I had with him growing up, trying to navigate the system. I've went through it. I understand how hard it is to get services, how hard it is to set up OT and PT and to get evaluations done and to have surgeries and things like that. And we got different services we provide, and I&R, which is information and referral, is one of our biggest services. And it doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot to someone who's looking for that information, someone who needs help finding housing or finding a food bank or help paying rent or paying an electricity bill or finding some durable medical equipment that broke or they haven't been able to find that. We have contacts that we can track that stuff down and help out as much as possible. I can tell you all the conversations that we have with individuals, either loud talking because they're upset about something and they can't do it. There's crying. There's all sorts of emotions flowing through here that, like I said, it's not a typical, hey, what's going on type of conversation. There's always, some sort of emotional attachment to these conversations, and a lot of it is heartbreaking to listen to their story and then having to try to find the services that they need to help them, and the flood of emotions after the fact that we do help them. It's wild. So many stories and consumers, of what we do on a daily basis, particularly home modifications, I think are the biggest thing, and transitions. We transition about 30 people out a year, and we build about 30 ramps a year.
So when Kirk talks about transitions, he's referring to helping people transition out of nursing homes or other state-funded facilities and back into the community. Usually this means living by themselves or with family or friends, and this can drastically improve the quality of life for somebody. The other service he mentioned is home modifications, which involves making houses more accessible so that people with disabilities can continue living at home rather than living in a place like a nursing home. One of the people I spoke with who's used Access to Independence for a home modification is a resident of Columbus, Georgia named Donna Greene. Donna lives alone and deals with challenges related to her mobility.
Well, I have had 14 hip surgeries, and therefore neither of my hips work properly, even after all the surgeries. And I have failed several times, and each time I fall, I'm a little worse off than the time before.
Donna explained that the ramp that she had Access to Independence build for her was not a luxury item, but a necessity.
I got to a point where I needed an entrance and access to get off of my back porch to be able to go out in the yard to get in my vehicle and go somewhere. And so it's not a matter of wanting it or anything like that. It's a matter of necessity. I've got to have it to get in and out of my house.
I asked Donna what she would have done if Access to Independence hadn't been able to build that ramp for her.
I don't know what would have happened. I had been looking all over the place. I even went to some churches, and they, you know, have their own people that they have to look after, so they were backed up. My own church didn't have the manpower to build it, and so I guess I'd have made a makeshift ramp out there and just took my chances with it.
Right.
I mean, that's about all you can do when you don't have any help.
It's these renovations that help keep people with disabilities out of assisted living facilities. Kirk told me another story about a person with a disability who he'd worked with to transition out of a nursing home.
He was in his mid to late 30s, lost both of his legs in a hunting accident. Fell out of a tree, broke his back, and had his legs amputated. Real nice guy. His name was Blaine, and he was in the nursing home doing rehab and everything, and we got him out. And I mean, we set him up, got him, you know, he got his prosthetics and everything else. And then we also helped him transition out of the nursing home. And then we set him up with, you know, equipment, training, helped him out, you know, getting a new place to live because he lost the place that he had when he went to the nursing home and lost all of his possessions because when he was there, you know, he didn't pay his bills because he was in the nursing home. He had no money coming in. And so they evicted him, threw all his stuff out. So he lost everything. So with the transition process, you know, we help him get him out. We find him a place to stay. We buy, you know, household items, get him all set up. And I mean, once we got him out, that dude was gone. Like I was his transition assistant at the time. This was a few years back, and trying to get, I was supposed to check on him monthly and see how he's doing, trying to get that dude in his house. Cause during the day he was either out hunting, he was out fishing, he was out at his buddies working on a car. You know, he was living his life, which is what we want to see. And I don't know, being in a nursing home is not the greatest ideal, and probably not the best, you know, situation for someone, an elderly person. You imagine, I mean, I think he was 35, 36. Mm-hmm. Could you just imagine being in a nursing home, not having anywhere to go? Just to think about that, put myself in these people's places, I just can't imagine what they would go through, or if they couldn't get out, if there wasn't places like us to help them, assist them out, if they didn't have any family, where would they go? Nowhere.
So Donna and Blaine are just two examples of people that Access to Independence has helped to live more independently. Like Kirk mentioned, the help that Access to Independence provides can sometimes be the difference between a person living in a nursing home or not. In addition to drastically improving the quality of life for these individuals, Kirk also explains how helping people stay in their homes actually saves the state money.
The state spends about $203, $205 a day for an individual to stay in a nursing home. Times 30 days, $6,000 a month, right? So a person in the nursing home, the state and federal government spending $6,000 a month. You live out in the community, what do you get from the state and the federal government? Your SSI check. What's that? $750 a month. Do I want to pay that individual $750 a month, or do I want to spend $6,000 a month on an individual? So they came up with the program, the MFP program, whereas this is MFP specifically will give you a budget of $20,000 to help transition someone out of the nursing home and live independently in the community. For every month that individual is living out in the community, the state and the federal government saving a little over $5,000 a month. If you think about it as just my center alone, for 30 transitions over the last 10 years, I've saved the state everything being equal, over the last 10 years, we probably saved the state right around $19 million getting people transition out. And so I think our goal last year was 205 individuals that we transitioned. That's $1 million a month times 12 months. So the state, the MFP program as a whole, for our goal of 205 people, we're saving $12.9 million a year transitioning people out of the nursing home. And that's for every year. So every 200 people, 205 people we get out, they are out a year. We're saving the state $13 million plus the cumulative years. So let's say the 30 or the 205 people we got out 5 years ago, right? If they all have stayed out, have not transitioned back into the community, those 200 people 5 years ago, we have saved $65 million just for those 200 people.
So home renovations and these transitions out of nursing homes are two of the major ways that CILs like A2I help people with disabilities, but they also help people in ways that are completely unique to their situation. For instance, Rashad Jones is a former Access to Independence employee with vision impairment who helped consumers at their center in a variety of ways. He told me about his experience working for Access to Independence.
Well, initially just I was excited just to have a job, and I'll say that because Access to Independence was my first job outside of me playing piano for church. Access to Independence was my very first job, so that was one thing. But then the other thing was helping people to learn how to read Braille or to work on their skills. But really, where I began to see results was once I started to go into the schools and teach the life skills curriculum. And then as I began to work with different people with helping them to learn their iPhone and to read Braille. I even worked with a guy who was like 87 or something, and he wanted to learn how to read Braille, and he was doing it. Blind veteran at the age of 87. Just to help somebody get from one point where they are to another point where they're a little bit more confident, a little bit more comfortable, is incredible. And just the different people who we've helped over the years, who I was able to help with their computer, learning how to use JAWS for Windows, the screen reader. Or learning how to navigate their iPad using VoiceOver, whatever it was, just to witness their excitement and the growth that they were able to achieve with our help was incredible. Because I can tell them all day, hey, this is what you do, this is what you do. But they're the ones who really have to put in the practice and the work. And there were a lot of them who did. And just to know that I was a small part of that. One consumer of mine who, she wasn't my first consumer, but she was one of my first and one of the most impactful. She's no longer with us. But she used to work several different places, but she ended up losing her sight. And she called in our office. I'll never forget her. She said, I want to be able to work again. I want to be able to do these things. I just don't know if I can. And I was like, well, yes, you can. And me being ever the optimist, of course you can do it. We just have to figure out how. And, she wanted lessons on how to navigate her iPhone a little bit better and then how to start typing and stuff again. And I worked with her for a couple of years before she passed away. And so we became close. She did not end up going back to work, but what she did do was she was able to volunteer at Access to Independence, come in every day for a few hours to, in exchange for some equipment, some technology that Access to Independence provided her. So she, did some things around the office. And just that, I used to think, man, I failed her because we never did get her back to work. And that used to really weigh on me. It hurt me so bad that I didn't get to where I thought we would get to. But I later realized, and she told me this beforehand, though, that even just getting back up every day, because she had multiple disabilities, but getting back in, into the swing of going into an office, even if it's for a couple of hours, a couple of days a week to, help us organize our brochures and do whatever else she did there. That meant a lot. To give her the confidence to use her phone again, and she started to do vlogs on Periscope, which is a social media app.
Wow.
That made a big difference in her life. She was, I think, maybe 42 when she passed away, but just to know that she was grateful for even me having the time and the willingness to help her. That's something that I'll never, ever, ever forget.
Those were just some of the ways that Rashad helped people as an Access to Independence employee. However, Rashad himself, as he was working for Access to Independence, got a new job opportunity, working for the federal government. The only problem was the job was on the West Coast. He needed to go live in California for several months to receive his training and begin his job. So he asked the people at Access to Independence, the job he was leaving, to assist him in moving across the country to start a new job. And they helped. He went from providing help to others as an Access to Independence employee to receiving it himself.
I needed some assistance as far as, mapping it all out. I had never left home before. Never lived outside of the city of Columbus, which is my hometown. So here I was getting ready to go all the way to Oakland, California for a new job in a town where I didn't know anybody. I had made some connections through some people I knew, but I didn't know anyone there. So it was a big, big step. And so Access to Independence really did step in to assist me in different ways. Another great person who works there, his name is Rico. He deals with housing. That's his thing. And to have him say, well, look, here's a housing list, and, fill this out, go on Rent Cafe and fill this out, and just, you know what I mean? Like I say, just to have him there to help me to really make sure I had all that stuff filled out. And he worked hours, him and Zach. I know you don't know these people, but he and Zach really were steadfast in helping me to fill out paper applications and filling out forms and just all sorts of things that require signatures, and just to making sure that I had stuff copied. You know what I mean? My documents, ID and social security card, birth certificates, just helping me just to organize all that stuff. Hours they spent helping me out. That's really where it shone through, was just, like I say, their willingness in between whatever else they had to do, them just taking the time and the effort to make sure everything was in order. Help me make sure it was in order. It's just something that I'll never be able to thank them enough for.
Rashad still works for the federal government, but he's been able to relocate back to Georgia and reports to an office here. He currently lives in Columbus and works remotely. So these are just some of the stories of what a little center for independent living can make possible for people like Rashad and all the others that we've heard about here. So I went on to ask Kirk, what are some of the biggest challenges that they face? He referenced state budget cuts. Now, these are cuts that went into effect in 2020, and they affected CILs throughout the state of Georgia across the board and led to widespread layoffs and reduction in staffing and hours in these centers that are providing these really crucial services. Now, these are centers that were already operating in many cases on shoestring budgets. Here, Kirk describes how those budget cuts affected their day-to-day functioning.
I mean, funding is the big thing. You throw some money at it, we can fix a lot of issues. But staffing, I think, is our big thing because of the funding. I've had to make some layoffs. We're only operating at about 60% of where I want to be. And that in itself is a huge, huge piece, because that's that many people not out in the community. That's, that many people not spreading the word and not showing the community what we do. We try to get out, do as many community events. We got community events coming up. We are just now going to do our ADA celebration that we're scheduled to do on July 23rd. So we're going to have a party here and have, things going on here at the office on a Saturday, have events and tables out for other people to come out and vendors to, come out and just have fun. We are supporting the Autism Hope Center. They have a resource fair coming up. So we're going to be out there with our trailer, our Tools for Life kit, showing individuals, just different things. And that's how we spread the word a lot, is to get out in the community and do community events. Well, it's hard to do community events when you don't have any employees to go out and do it. It's hard to go out and spread the word when, right now I only got 2 people working in the office, me and Rico, right, currently. Everyone else, I've got my admin specialist. She works from home most days. She does all my paperwork stuff. So, and then I got a transition coordinator who's doing all the transitions, my 30 transitions. Well, she needs 2 assistants. She's doing it all by herself. When I was a transition assistant, I had 2 other transition assistants and the MFP manager. There's 4 of us doing all those transitions. It's just her now.
So I went ahead and asked Kirk if he was interested in having people in the area volunteer if they hear this and they want to help.
We will always take any volunteer. We would like to branch out of the school, college volunteer curriculum and get, volunteers on a steady basis, to get a list of like 5 or 10 individuals who we can call and be like, hey, we have this coming up. Will you be able to work it? Or would you be able to help? I think that would be an outstanding thing to have, and to get the word out for that. We do have a lot of things in-house as well that need to be done that we may not get to just because we don't have the time. And if we had volunteers, that would go a long way. Is, we got medical equipment that needs moved around or servicing. We got things here in the office that if people aren't comfortable dealing with public, we have so much to do here. But if we have, an event coming up and, they need a volunteer just for help setting up, then it's just going to be, like, hey, I need you to help put up these tents, or I need you to help do this, or help with the food, and, stuff like that is with minimal contact. It's really going to be just helping us out set up for events. And if it's a long-term help, we're definitely going to take the time to pair you with someone and help you, train you along the way. And honestly, half of our employees now, I think, volunteered at some point and was volunteer. And when a spot came open, we're like, hey, we think you're going to be great for this. How would you like to do this on a permanent basis? And right now, half of our employees were volunteers at some point that we hired on because we liked the way they work and their work ethic. And now we're paying them.
So that's it for today. We're going to wrap up this episode. You've heard all about Access to Independence and the services they provide to Muskogee County and Western Georgia and the surrounding counties. If you are in that area and you need services or you want to volunteer, give them a call at 706-405-2393. Or if you want to donate to them, you can check out their website at accesstoindependence.org. That's access, 2, independence.org. The music for this podcast is provided by bensound.com. Thank you for listening to Accessibility Now, stories about disability rights in Georgia. My name is Matt Shedd. Accessibility Now is a podcast produced by the statewide Independent Living Council of Georgia. To learn more about that organization, you can visit us at silkga.org. That's silcga.org. I'm Matt Shedd, and we just want to remind you that a Georgia that includes everyone is better for all of us. To close us out, I'm going to have Rashad share his thoughts on what independence means to him.
I think independence to me means having the resources, the strategy, and the confidence to lead a life in which you can be proud, a life in which you are in charge. That's what independence is. Having the confidence, knowing that you can do it, but then also having the tools to act that out, to live the life, to lead the life that you want. And again, Access to Independence is a great way to develop those skills. and those techniques to learn how to effectively advocate for yourself, to learn how to use your iPhone or your assistive technology, to learn how to travel. I'm so grateful to Kirk and to everyone there for all that they did to help me, and to know that they're still there if I need them again.